The Great Potato Famine of 1845 in Ireland is the cause of how my family eventually became American citizens. On my grandmother's side of the family, we came from Ireland to Canada, and then my grandmother made her way to America by marrying my grandpa in 1958, who was already an American citizen. In the mid-19th century, there was an outbreak of a new type of potato blight that was found in America that was also an air-carried fungus, which is a blight that is still with us today. This fungus was completely inedible due to the fact that when it was dug up, it was a black, gooey mess. This type of potato blight made its way throughout Europe and then found its way to Ireland, where it gave the Irish serious grief for over 3 years. The reason that this was such a disaster was because during this century, most of the Irish families were pretty big, and this was because a large family was an insurance of continued sustenance in later life, meaning children would take care of their parents. During this time, families only grew enough food to last them the year until the next crop season. At the beginning of this specific famine, England had decided not to help them because Ireland had gone through several famines throughout their history, and England figured that they could handle this on their own without any assistance. By the year of 1846, England realized that this was no ordinary famine because 3,500,000 euros worth of potatoes had been lost. Another major result of the famine was that between 1846 and 1850, the population of Ireland dropped by 2 million, which represented 25% of the total population. About half of that was due to death, and the other half was from emigration to different parts of Europe and parts of North America. My grandmother's great-grandparents were part of those who migrated to North America. They specifically migrated to Newfoundland, Canada, because it was thought of as the land of promise. According to my great-aunt Jan Fitzgerald, she told me that our family came to St. John's from Nova Scotia in hopes of a brighter future. She couldn't recall much about her great-grandparents or even her grandparents, but she could remember how her parents came together. It's a particularly funny story. It started when my great-grandmother, Evelyn, was at work, and my great-grandfather, Leo Fitzgerald, pulled up on his bike. He says to her, "Give me a kiss," to which she responded with, "Go away, I'm working." Undeterred, my great-grandfather responded with, "I'll come back and I'll walk you home." This is how their relationship began and blossomed into them having 10 children, but only 6 of those 10 lived to adulthood. Among the children that did live was my grandmother's twin brother. I've heard the story from my father that he died from eating a poison berry when he and my grandmother were only 4 years old. As my grandmother grew up, her father began to drink very heavily, and this caused a lot of problems for their family. My Aunt Jan told me specifically about an incident that she could recall when my great-grandfather Leo kicked my great-grandmother and the kids out of the house in one of his episodes. She said that he was waving again at them, telling them to leave. This is around the time that my grandmother, Joanna Jones Fitzgerald, was 16 years old. My great-aunt Jan said that they had the best mother who had a heart of gold, and if it hadn't been for her, they all wouldn't have turned out so well. I believe that's why my grandmother was so quick to marry my grandfather, Laverne Stevens, shortly after she turned 18, a reason to get away from her father. According to my great-aunt Jan, my grandparents met by going on a double date. My grandfather was in the Air Force military and was stationed at Fort Pepperell, which was in the town that my grandmother was living in. They didn't date for very long when my grandfather asked her to marry him, but she refused to say yes until he paid for her to come to the United States to meet his family first. After she got back from this trip, she decided that she would marry him. They ended up having 8 children together, and shortly after the last child was born, they decided to divorce. During their marriage, my grandfather had begun to drink quite heavily. My grandmother put up with it for only so long before she couldn't take it anymore. After she had her last child, which she didn't even want to have, she decided enough was enough. My grandmother remarried shortly after that to my step-grandfather, Tom Welch, and he brought 5 children with him. It's crazy to think how far our family has come in today's generation, and how different the times are compared to what my grandmother's ancestors had gone through. How they lived in Ireland and suffered through several potato famines and enduring the worst one before finally migrating to North America in hopes of a better future. It was the decision by my great-grandmother's great-grandparents to move from Ireland to North America that gave us many opportunities. And it was only one choice by my grandmother to marry my grandfather, which made it possible for me to be an American citizen by birth. These actions are perfect examples of how one choice, no matter how small or big it may seem, can have such an impact on you and the generations after you. Thank you.